The League of Women Voters, North Metro Chamber of Commerce, and North Suburban Optimists welcome you to this forum to meet the candidates running for Minnesota House of Representatives District 37B, which includes most of Blaine. Thank you to the candidates, to NorthMetroTV for making this event possible. This year, League of Women Voters is holding our Meet the Candidates Forum without an audience due to a COVID-19 spread. Questions for upcoming forums for the general election can be submitted on the lwvabcmn.org website. I'm Mary Santee. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters in the White Bear Lake area. I live in White Bear Township. I'll be moderating, and I cannot vote for either candidate, nor am I even acquainted with them. So all candidates for the race were invited, and all candidates are participating. I remind you, the League of Women Voters does not support any candidate or any political party. The goal of our forums is to help citizens form their opinion and become informed voters. We'll begin with 3 questions which the candidates have already received, and that will be followed by questions which have been emailed to the League in Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids. Candidates drew numbers for the order of speaking, and they'll alternate their answers for each question, and the final question will be in reverse order. Answers are limited to 1 minute. So the candidates for Minnesota Legislative District are, on my left, Nolan West, and on his left, Amir Joseph Malik. And we'll begin with the questions. Amir has picked number 1 spot. So the first question is, describe your background and community involvement.
First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I know it's not easy in the COVID-19 environment, so I really appreciate that. As to my background, I was born and raised in rural Illinois. My father worked at the Green Giant factory in Hoopeston, Illinois, sweet corn capital of the world. Later on, I graduated from the University of Illinois, as he had. In the 90s, my family moved to Minnesota when that factory was sold. He stayed at Pillsbury Green Giant his entire career. In 2016, we bought our home in Blaine. I lived there with my wife and 4 children. Career-wise, I had worked as a teacher for a number of years. My wife and I both have education degrees, and about 20 years of teaching experience between us. And then also now I'm an attorney, and I work as a wage theft investigator for the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. And my community involvement, I volunteer with a Children's Law Center.
Nolan, your answer. Do you want the question read again?
Oh, what is my background?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
All right. Hello, my name's Nolan West. I've represented Blaine in the Minnesota legislature since 2017. A little bit about my background. I've lived in Blaine for my entire life, except for when I went to the University of Minnesota, where I got my history degree. And that has served me well in my present position, as history is a way of repeating itself. And about me personally, my whole family's lived in Blaine for quite some time. My parents, my grandparents, 2 of my 3 brothers and their families, my aunt and uncle all live in Blaine. So I know what it's like, to sit on Highway 65 and what Blaine really needs as a community, because I've lived it my whole life. Growing up here, it was all sod fields and junkyards, and now it's a thriving city of 64,000 people, which is just ridiculous how fast that's happened. So, and personally about me is I'm somewhat of a nerd. I'm very into building computers, technology, the internet, and that kind of thing, which has been good for my job, because it looks like these old guys who are running things think they can regulate things they don't understand at all, which I find very frustrating. But it's all good so far. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So for the second question, Nolan will begin. And that question is, what are your qualifications for serving on this office, Minnesota Legislative District 37B?
Well, I am the current representative. I have been since 2017, and it has been a wonderful experience. I mean, running for office is a horrible experience, but serving is incredibly fulfilling. Most of my job has been spent helping people individually. When I was first elected, a MNsure website wasn't working, so I spent most of my time trying to get people health insurance, which really isn't about voting. It's not about politics. It's literally just helping people navigate the intricacies of state government and not getting the runaround on hold all day. Being able to do that has been incredibly fulfilling, and then I also feel like I'm going to college for free because I was educated before this, but being able to sit down and have the smartest person in almost any field sit down and talk to you, you can get both perspectives on everything. And being able to meet people from different perspectives and have their arguments articulated well, even ones I don't agree with, has been a great experience that has made it so I can be the best representative for a community as diverse as ours.
Thank you. And now Amir Joseph Malik.
While I do have a law degree, that is not what qualifies me for this position. What qualifies me for this position is my belief in a transparent government, a government that works for the people, a government that puts the people of Blaine first, not special interests, lobbyist groups, or party leaders. Blaine deserves better representation, and this is what they've been asking for, and this is what qualifies me for this position.
Thank you. Third question, we'll start with Amir. What are your long and short-term goals for this district?
Well, there are so many things I'm passionate about. People stuck on Highway 65, the situation has been like that for years, where people are not able to get to work, they're not able to get to their families. We've had the same leadership for years and nothing's changed on Highway 65. But other issues separate from that, we have people who are in their 50s and 60s who have a hard time getting a job, not because they don't work hard, not because they don't want to work, but because employers don't want to pay for their health care. And so this is why I believe that everybody should be able to buy into Minnesota Care, so that we can move away from this type of age discrimination that people face in the workforce. Better funding for education. That's another thing that's important to me. We do not have enough counselors. We're 48th in America, one counselor for every 700 students, and we've seen that the world is changing. We're having increases in suicides and other problems, and we need to have counseling that matches the needs of our community.
Thank you. Nolan.
Short-term goals has been transportation, what I've been working on right away. The first bill I introduced when I was elected in 2017 was to get 105th Avenue rebuilt in front of the National Sports Center, and thank goodness we got that before. I mean, that road was dangerous, especially with the USA Cup in town and all these kids crossing it. We managed to make it safer before anything tragic happened. And then the next thing I worked on was getting 35W rebuilt, which should be functionally done by the end of the year. So we're going to have, that's been a huge headache for anybody in Blaine as well as Highway 65. And Highway 65, I worked to get a study started, so we finally are moving on it. This is the first movement we've had since the interchange was built at 125th Avenue. And we need to get an interchange at 109th, which I'm working on getting that into the bonding bill right now to make sure people can get in and out of Blaine. Long term, we need more businesses in Blaine. One thing we can solve with the traffic issue is if more jobs are here, people won't need to drive in and out of Blaine. So if we can bring in more businesses as well as improve our transportation, it'll be an even better place to live.
Thank you. Then we have two questions from our sponsor groups, and the first one, we'll start with you, Nolan, and it is, please describe any experiences you have owning or managing a business, as well as specific advocacy efforts on behalf of local small business community.
Well, one of the things I've worked on for local business in particular is increasing their property tax exemption, property taxes are a huge impact for small businesses, a lot bigger impact than they are for large corporations like Target or something with multiple properties. So we increase the exemption so they can save money on their initial property, because a lot of them only have one property, and that's resulted in big tax savings for small businesses, which they need it desperately right now with the COVID-19 epidemic. And then I sort of own my own business. I retail. I've monetized all the hobbies I've ever had, and I sell collectibles and electronics on eBay. And figuring out inventory and shipping on a very small scale has given me a taste of what it's like to build a business. But I'm leaving that to the experts. I'm trying to make them create an environment where they can succeed the best they can.
Thank you. Amir?
My day job is as a wage theft investigator. And so I spend most of my time trying to help level the playing field for small businesses. One of the things that businesses have complained to me about is that some businesses are not following the rules. They're stealing wages from their workers. So then when you're bidding on contracts, the businesses that are stealing wages are able to bid a little bit lower and then still win the contract, but the way they're doing it is by stealing wages from their workers. So I've heard from so many businesses that have said, all we want is a level playing field. We know how to do our business, but we just need a level playing field, and the laws need to be enforced. So this is what I do day in and day out, trying to make sure that businesses can do what they need to do because there's an equal playing field, and you're not punished for doing the right thing and following the law and paying your workers.
Thank you. And you'll begin the next question, which is, what do you see as the greatest need or challenge for youth in this district, and how, as an elected official, would you bring about those changes?
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm a volunteer attorney with the Children's Law Center. So having this interaction with people, most of my clients would be in the 11 to 14-year-old range. It tells me that there are a couple things that we have to acknowledge. One, the drug epidemic is hurting the community a lot. We have many of these kids, because their parents were involved in drugs, parental rights have been terminated, they're in broken homes. We need to make more of an effort to provide services for drug addiction and mental illness. We cannot abandon our youth just because they've had some issues when they were at a very young age. And so I think providing proper support is really important when it comes from counseling, health care, other services that they need, and also providing activities for the youth to do. It's important that people have things to keep them occupied, keep them engaged with the community.
Thank you. Nolan West, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What do you see as the greatest need of change for youth in this district, and how, as an elected official, would you bring about those changes?
Yeah, we've had a rough time. The youth in Blaine, we had all the suicides recently in our high schools, which has been tragic. And one thing I worked on with across the aisle, actually, was a bill that made it so all teachers have to get suicide prevention training rather than just certain tiers. That really helped equip them so that they can step in when they see these problems happening. And that is now law now, thankfully, and hopefully that can make a difference. And we also need to make sure that kids know that they're growing up during the most stressful time I could possibly imagine. A lot of them didn't even get to walk graduation. And letting them know that it isn't the end of the world. It might feel dark right now, but if you take a step back, you can see that life has been getting better for basically everyone in the entire world over a long period of time. There have been dark periods in history like the Great Depression, but we were sprung out of that within 15 years. So even though it's dark right now, times will get better, especially in America. We've demonstrated that.
Thank you. And the next question, we start with Nolan West. The state faces a likely revenue deficit because of COVID costs and because of reduced taxes on individual and businesses. how would you propose to avoid a deficit at the end of this year and next year?
Now that is a tough question. We got a $4.7 billion deficit going on right now. Thankfully, we put a third of our surplus, when we have it, away in our rainy day fund, budget reserve, 4 times like this. We have $2.4 billion in that budget reserve right now, which is very good. The first thing we need to look at is limiting extraneous government spending. Our state spends one of the most per capita in our region, and a $49 billion deficit that's grown budget, which has grown rapidly over the last 10 years. We have room to size down, and rather than raising taxes when people don't have jobs or their businesses are on the edge or are already gone and they have no money to pay those taxes. So I think using our budget reserve and limiting extraneous government spending, like we have all sorts of investment programs for like startups, but maybe it's not the best time to do a risky state investment in a startup. Things like that we can limit so that people can keep their money and make their lives better for their family during this difficult time.
Thank you.
Could
Do
you
you
please
need me to
repeat?
read the question
Yes,
again?
thank you.
The state is facing a likely revenue deficit due to the COVID-19 and then from lowered business and individual taxes. How would you propose remedies for that, especially to avoid a deficit at the end of this year and next year?
Well, fortunately, Governor Dayton, before Governor Walz, pulled us out of the hole. We had a large deficit from the previous Republican administration. So it was good that Governor Dayton got us out of that, and we ended up with a surplus. And if we see in the proposals that are coming from Governor Walz, again, he is proposing, common sense solutions to dealing with our budget. One, we do have a rainy day fund. Two, when we're looking at it, there are ways that you can delay some of the spending. If you see they're already having hiring freezes, that would keep spending down. And I think also, though, we should focus on our long-term goals of how we're going to improve our economy here in Minnesota. The better the economy is doing, the more tax revenue you're going to have, and which is why I hope that we will be more supportive of our infrastructure.
Thank you. And you will begin with the next question. Considering recent events, how would you address racism in the state? Amir.
Well, as we know, our state and our country has really faced a reckoning on race. And we see, of course, most people are good people. But it's important to talk about some of the laws that have encouraged this in our system, that have produced racism. And I think a few of the things we need to look at it from beginning to end. Look at housing. I've dealt with the employment discrimination law. Look at some of the laws that many people don't know about that affect how people are treated when they're looking for work, when they're going to the hospital. I mean, it was really disappointing to see how black babies have 3 times chance of dying than non-black babies during birth. And these are things that we have to look at. There is problems in the system, but together Minnesota can overcome them.
Thank you. Nolan West?
I think we need to focus on, as leaders, uniting people rather than trying to figure out how we can divide these groups and play them off each other. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I only focus on what I'm going to do and what we can do to make Blaine a better place rather than attacking or going for the negative thing. It's that kind of fomented anger is spilling over into our lives, and it's gotten out of control. And one of the biggest things, policing and police reform has been a big issue in regards to race. And that's actually something we came together on, and we passed a police reform bill in the last special session where we increased protections for people who are affected in a use of force incident. And then we added in more training oversight for civilians to actually have input on how the police are trained, as well as banning chokeholds and making sure that every single situation is de-escalated as much as possible. And that was a great thing we did on a bipartisan basis And that is, as soon as Democrats and Republicans get along, the media moves on and stops covering it. So we need to
Thank
focus
you.
on positive and what we've done to bring us together rather than dividing
Thank you.
people.
Okay, so we'll begin our closing statements with Nolan West.
Thanks for putting this on. I appreciate it. You know, it's always good, especially in a time where it's harder to interact with people, to have a chance to talk. And one thing I will continue working on, as I have from the beginning, is the problems for everyone in Blaine. I'm not going to focus on a specific group. I'm focusing on everyone. Things that aren't partisan, that like Highway 65, 35W, 105th. Things that, you know, we don't need to go partisan flamethrower. We just need to sit down and focus on the problems at hand. And that is what I've been focused on. If you've ever followed what I do, I keep it as straight down the middle as possible because I have to represent everyone as your representative. It doesn't matter what party I am. I have to represent everyone. So I will sit down and listen. I've listened to people from all political parties and apolitical parties. And I've been better off for it. And I try and make sure that take some of the venom out, realize, hey, we can talk to each other and get along. And the problems we face aren't partisan. They are everyday problems we all experience. So that has been my goal from the beginning, and that's what I continue planning on doing as Blaine's representative.
Thank you. Amir.
Well, the people of Blaine have made it clear to me that they want change. They are tired of the status quo. They are tired of extremist rhetoric. They're tired of being stuck on Highway 65 and not seeing change. They're tired of our elected leaders not willing to vote yes for our infrastructure bills because they're caught up in party politics and listening to special interests. I've listened. That's why I'm the only candidate who does not accept any special interest money. The people of Blaine have said that they want someone who's independent, who will do things that make sense for Blaine, and they want change. We cannot just keep going the same status quo year after year when there are real needs that the community here in Blaine needs. I look forward to your support on November 3rd.
Thank you. And thank you. Now we'll close. Thank you both for putting yourselves forward for election in District 37B. Thank you to all of you for watching and for your interest in becoming informed voters. You will find links to all the Meet the Candidate forums on the LWV ABC website at lwvabcmn.org as we move through the election season. And we also thank NorthMetroTV. You can request an absentee ballot right now on the Secretary of State's website, or vote in person anytime after September 18th at Mary Ann Young Center, 9150 Central Avenue, Aquator Park. If you need to register to vote or update your information, you can go to mnvotes.org, the Secretary of State's website, and you can do that online or when you go to vote on Election Day. Make your voice heard in the general election by voting November 3rd. Thank you, and stay healthy and safe.